Mind your internal dialogue. The key to unwavering optimism. Look, I always say that life isn't what happens to us, but how we interpret what happens to us. And that interpretation originates in a key place. Our minds. What we tell ourselves determines our attitude, our energy, and ultimately, our ability to face life with optimism. If we constantly tell ourselves that everything is going badly, that we're not good enough, or that the future is uncertain and frightening, how do you think we're going to feel? Badly, of course. If your head is full of negative thoughts, your emotions will be negative and your actions will follow suit. It's a vicious cycle. But here's the good news. Our internal dialogue can be trained. It's not magic. It's not something we're born with or not. It's something we can change with practice, intention, and commitment. The negative mind trap. Let's see. How many times have you caught yourself saying things like, I'm a disaster. I'm not going to be able to handle this. This always happens to me. I'm so unlucky. We've all fallen into this trap. But the problem isn't having negative thoughts from time to time, because that's normal. The problem is believing them and repeating them over and over again until they become our truth. And this isn't just theory. There are studies in psychology that show that our brains have a natural negative bias. That is, we're programmed to pay more attention to the bad than the good. It's a survival mechanism. In prehistoric times, remembering the negative helped us avoid danger. But today, that tendency works against us. How to change your self-talk and train your mind for optimism. Here's the important thing. It's not about deceiving ourselves or repeating meaningless, pretty phrases. There's no point in standing in front of the mirror and saying, I'm amazing, if you don't believe it. It's about changing the way we talk to ourselves with respect, realism, and a more constructive perspective. Become aware of what you tell yourself. The first thing is to pay attention. Become aware of your thoughts. Every time you catch yourself saying something negative to yourself, stop it in its tracks. Imagine it's a friend of yours talking to you like that. Would you allow them to talk to you like that? No, right? Then don't allow it to yourself. Shift the focus from the negative to the constructive. It's not about denying reality, but about focusing on solutions. Instead of thinking I'm a disaster, change it to I'm learning and I can improve. Instead of I never get it right, say I'm going to try another way. Use words that push you, not words that drag you down. There's a huge difference between saying this is impossible and saying this is a challenge, but I'm going to try. The words we use matter because they create our reality. Surround yourself with positive messages. Do you know what happens if you consume negative news all day? Surround yourself with pessimistic people and repeat defeatist thoughts? Well, your mind becomes filled with emotional garbage. Look for content that motivates you, people who inspire you, and messages that help you see things from a different perspective. Talk to yourself as you would to someone you love. How would you talk to a good friend who's going through a bad time? Surely you wouldn't say, you're a failure, but rather something like, you have potential. This is just a bad time. Keep going. Speak to yourself with the same love and respect. The power to change the story we tell ourselves. I assure you, when you change your internal dialogue, your attitude changes. And when your attitude changes, your life changes. The key to optimism isn't to deny the bad, but to focus on the good, on what you can do, on what you can change. Because life isn't always easy, but the way we talk to ourselves can make it much more bearable and full of opportunities. And that, my friend, is a power that only you can train. Gratitude, the habit that transforms your mind and your life. If there's one thing that radically changes the way we see life, it's gratitude. Gratitude isn't just saying thank you when someone does us a favor. It's a way of thinking, an attitude toward life. It's training our minds to focus on what we have instead of what we lack, to value the good instead of complaining about the bad. We live in a society where everything pushes us to want more. More money, more success, more things, more recognition. And of course, it's not wrong to want to improve, but if we're always looking at what we don't have, we never enjoy what we do have. And so, we fall into a brutal trap. We live dissatisfied, stressed, and with a constant feeling that it's never enough. Gratitude is the antidote to this way of thinking. It's the key to feeling good about what we have, and at the same time, continuing to grow. And best of all, it's free, and we can practice it every day. The problem with the dissatisfied mind. Our minds, by nature, focus on the negative. If we have 100 good things and 2 bad things, guess what we're going to focus on? That's right, the bad things. It happens to all of us. It's like when someone gives you 10 compliments and 1 criticism. What do you remember most? The criticism. But gratitude breaks that negative pattern. It trains us to give more weight to the positive than the negative, to see what we have instead of what we lack. And when we shift that focus, it changes our attitude and therefore our happiness. How to train your mind for gratitude. Okay, the question is, how do we make gratitude a habit? Because this isn't just about saying thank you every now and then. It's about reprogramming our brains to see life differently. Start the day with gratitude. Before you check your phone or worry about what you have to do, think of 3 things you're grateful for. They can be big or small. Your health, your family, a hot cup of coffee, the morning sun. Starting the day with gratitude changes the energy with which you approach everything else. Keep a gratitude journal. Writing down 3 good things that happened to you during the day every night trains your brain to focus on the positive. It can be something simple, a nice conversation, a delicious meal, an unexpected smile. The important thing is to train your mind to look for the good. Express it more. Don't take the good for granted. Say thank you out loud. Tell people, show appreciation. Not only will you feel better, but you'll make others feel good, and that creates a virtuous cycle. Turn problems into learning experiences. Gratitude doesn't mean ignoring problems, but rather changing your perspective. Instead of asking yourself, why is this happening to me? Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Everything we experience, even the difficult ones, leaves us with something valuable. Surround yourself with grateful people. This attitude is contagious. If you surround yourself with people who only complain, you'll end up the same way. Look for people who value what they have, who see the bright side of things, who inspire you to be better. Change complaints into gratitude. Every time you find yourself complaining, think of something positive about that same situation. If you're stuck in traffic, instead of complaining, think, I have a car, I have music to listen to, I have time to think. Appreciate what you take for granted. Health, family, work, the comfort of home. Many things you have today you once dreamed of. Don't wait to lose them to appreciate them. Gratitude changes your life. I'm serious. The happiest people are not those who have the most, but those who most value what they have. And this isn't a philosophical issue. It's a scientific reality. Gratitude reduces stress, improves mood, and helps us view life with optimism. So make gratitude a daily habit. Because when you focus on the good multiplies. Reprogram your mind. The power of choosing what to focus on. Look, this is key. The quality of your life depends on what you choose to focus on. It's that simple. Your mood, your energy, and your attitude don't depend so much on what happens to you, but on how you interpret what happens to you. And that interpretation comes directly from your focus. Imagine you're walking down the street, and suddenly it starts to rain. One person might think, what a disaster. My day was already bad, and now this, what bad luck. Another person in the same situation might think, well, it's a good thing I brought an umbrella. Besides, rain is necessary. Nature appreciates it. Same situation, but 2 completely different approaches. And this isn't a minor detail, because what you focus on determines your emotional state. If you spend the day focusing on problems, on what you lack, on the negative, how do you think you're going to feel? Bad. But if you learn to train your mind to focus on the positive, on what you can control, on what adds up, then your attitude and your happiness will change radically. The mind's negative bias, why we always see the bad. The human mind has a natural tendency to focus on the negative. It's a survival mechanism that comes from our ancestors. They lived in a dangerous environment where they had to be alert to any threat to survive. So our brains got used to prioritizing dangers, problems, and the bad. The problem is that today we don't live in a jungle fleeing predators, but our minds still work the same. If we don't train them, they will always see the negative before the positive. Look, I'll give you a simple example. If 10 good things happen to you and 1 bad thing happens to you during the day, which do you focus on? The bad. If you're congratulated 5 times at work, but criticized once, what do you remember? The criticism. If you have a fantastic relationship, but one day you argue, what keeps you thinking all night? The argument. This is no coincidence. It's the mind's negative bias. And if we don't control it, it dominates us. How to train your mind to focus on the positive. The good news is that we can reprogram our brain. It's not easy or immediate, but with practice, we can change our focus and train ourselves to see life with more optimism. Here are some practical exercises to achieve this. Become aware of what you focus on. Throughout the day, ask yourself several times, am I focusing on the positive or the negative? You can't change something if you don't even realize you're doing it. Change your perspective on problems. Instead of seeing a problem as a punishment, see it as a learning opportunity. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Use the what if this was good technique. When something bad happens to you, instead of complaining, think, what if this is actually something good in disguise? Often, the greatest learning and opportunities come from difficult situations. Avoid the comparison trap. If you spend your life comparing yourself to others, you'll always feel like you're missing something. Focus on what you have, your own path, your own achievements. Do a negativity detox. Reduce the time you spend watching alarmist news. Avoid conversations filled with complaints. And stay away from people who always see the downside in everything. Surround yourself with people who inspire you and make you see the good in life. Train your mind with powerful questions. Every morning, instead of thinking about the day's problems, ask yourself, what good things await me today? And every night, before going to sleep, think, what was the best thing that happened to me today? Reinforce the positive with action. It's not enough to think about the positive. You also have to take action. If something good happens during your day, celebrate, be grateful for it, and express it. The more you reinforce a good, the easier it will be for your brain to focus on it. Your focus, your happiness. Look, I'm crystal clear on this. Life isn't perfect. There will always be problems, challenges, and difficult moments. But the difference between a person who lives with joy and one who lives bitterly isn't in what happens to them, but in what they choose to focus on. If you train your mind to see the good, to look for the positive, to focus on what you do have instead of what you lack, then you'll live with more optimism, more energy, and much more happiness. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who chooses what to focus on. The power of words, how what you say shapes your thinking. Words have incredible power. What you say, both out loud and in your mind, shapes your thinking, your mood, and even your actions. If you want to train your mind for optimism, you have to start by changing your language. Look, imagine 2 people facing a challenge. One says, this is impossible. There's no way I can do it. The other says, it's difficult, but if I try hard, I can find a solution. Which do you think has the best chance of success? The second, without a doubt. And it's not magic. It's not cheap self-help. It's simply that language shapes our attitude. Words are how we organize our reality. If you constantly use negative language, your brain assumes it as truth. If you repeat to yourself, I'm a disaster, you'll never, I do nothing right. Over time, you believe it, feel it, and act accordingly. But if you change those words to I made a mistake, but I can learn and improve, your mind responds differently. Self-talk, what you tell yourself matters. We all have an internal conversation. It's that voice in our heads that comments on everything we do. And that voice can be our greatest ally or our worst enemy. The problem is that often that voice is too harsh. We talk to ourselves in ways we would never talk to another person. I'm a failure. I always do things wrong. I'll never make it. Sound familiar? Now, imagine saying that to a friend who's going through a tough time. You wouldn't do that, would you? So why do you say it to yourself? The first step in training your mind to be optimistic is to be aware of your internal dialogue. Every time you catch yourself saying something negative to yourself, stop and reframe it in a more constructive way. It's not about tricking yourself, or it's not about seeing life through rose-colored glasses, but about changing a narrative that limits you to one that empowers you. For example, instead of I'm a disaster, say I'm learning and improving every day. Instead of I never get things right. Say, I can learn from my mistakes and do better next time. Instead of, I'm no good at this, say, I haven't mastered this yet, but if I practice, I'll improve. The language you use with others also matters. It's not just about how you talk to yourself, but also how you communicate with others. Negative language is contagious. If you always talk about problems, how bad everything is, how difficult life is, your environment absorbs it and reinforces that same pessimism in you. On the other hand, if you start using more positive language, you'll not only improve your attitude, but you'll also influence others in a positive way. Words have power. Use it well. Some practical ways to improve your language. Avoid constant complaints. Complaining without looking for solutions is useless. Change I have to I want to or I'm going to, instead of I have to go to work. Try I'm going to work and give my best. Replace the negative with the constructive. Instead of this is a problem, say this is a challenge and it has a solution. Surround yourself with people who use positive language. Attitudes are contagious, and so is language. Gratitude as mental training. Focus on what you have, not what you lack. One of the most powerful exercises for training your mind toward optimism is gratitude. And I'm not talking about an abstract concept, but a concrete, real practice that changes your way of seeing life. Look, the problem is that human beings have a natural tendency to focus on what they lack instead of what they have. We wake up every day, and instead of being grateful that we're alive, that we're healthy, that there are people who love us, that we have opportunities, we focus on what we don't have, on what worries us, on what hasn't gone well. And the worst part is that this focus blinds us to all the good around us. Why does gratitude change our mindset? Gratitude isn't just a nice feeling. It's a mental mechanism that changes your perspective. When you give thanks, you activate parts of your brain related to well-being and happiness. You literally rewire your mind to see the positive instead of the negative. It's no coincidence that the most optimistic people are also the most grateful. It's not that they're luckier or that their lives are easier. It's that they've learned to value what they have instead of lamenting what they lack. How can you train gratitude in your daily life? Here are some practical strategies that work. Start the day with gratitude. Before getting up, think of 3 things you're grateful for. They can be big or small, from having a family to simply waking up healthy. This exercise changes your state of mind from the morning. Make a gratitude list every night. Before going to sleep, write down 3 good things that happened during the day in a notebook. No matter how difficult the day was, there's always something positive. A conversation, a pleasant moment, a laugh, a coffee you enjoyed. This exercise trains your mind to look for the positive even on difficult days. Express gratitude to others. Don't hold back your gratitude. Express it. Tell people what you value about them. A text, a call, a simple thank you for what you do. Not only will you make the other person feel good, but you'll reinforce in your mind the habit of appreciating the good in others. Turn complaining into gratitude. Every time you find yourself complaining, stop and reframe your thought. Instead of, I hate having to work, say, I'm so lucky I have a job that allows me to make a living. Instead of, I don't like exercising, say, it's great that I have the ability to move and improve my health. Instead of this day has been a disaster, think, there were difficult things today, but also good things. Surround yourself with grateful people. The attitude is contagious. If you surround yourself with people who always complain, you'll end up seeing life the same way. Look for people who value what they have, who see the positive, who are grateful instead of complaining. Focus on what you can control, the key to an optimistic mindset. One of the main causes of pessimism is trying to control the uncontrollable. We worry about things beyond our control. We suffer from situations we can't change. And ultimately, we end up frustrated, anxious, and demotivated. But here's the key. When you focus on what you can control, you regain your power and your ability to act. The problem with wanting to control everything. We live in a world where there are many things beyond our control. You can't control how others act. You can't control the economy. You can't control people's opinions. You can't control the weather, traffic, the news. If your happiness depends on these things, you are putting yourself in a situation of constant vulnerability. because any external change can bring you down. But if instead you learn to focus only on what depends on you, everything changes. What can you control? This is where the difference between a pessimistic and an optimistic mindset lies. An optimistic person isn't someone who lives in a perfect world, but someone who learns to focus on what they can handle. What can you control? Your attitude. You can't control what happens, but you can control how you react. You can choose to view each problem as an obstacle or as an opportunity to learn. Your thoughts. You can't prevent negative thoughts from appearing, but you can choose not to feed them. You can observe them and replace them with more useful and positive thoughts. Your actions. You can't control the outcome of everything you do, but you can give your best in every situation. You can strive, improve, and learn. How do you invest your time and energy? Do you focus on complaining or on finding solutions? Do you spend hours on social media comparing yourself to others? Or do you invest that time in improving your life? Who you surround yourself with? You can't change people, but you can choose who you spend your time with. Surround yourself with people who inspire you, who motivate you, who help you grow. Practical exercise. The circle of control technique. A very useful exercise for training this mindset is to draw 2 circles on a piece of paper. In the outer circle, write down all the things you can't control, the weather, the economy, the opinions of others. In the inner circle, write down the things that do depend on you, your attitude, your actions, how you react to problems. Whenever you feel frustrated or worried, ask yourself which circle you're focusing your energy on. If you're giving too much importance to things you can't control, redirect your attention to the inner circle. The power of language. Speak like an optimist and your mind will follow. If you want to train your mind to be optimistic, start by being mindful of the words you use every day, because what you say not only influences others, but also shapes your own way of thinking and feeling. Language isn't just a reflection of our mindset. It also builds it. If you speak negatively, you feel negative. If you speak optimistically, you train your brain to see things differently. How language influences our mindset. Look, the brain is like a sponge. It doesn't distinguish between what's real and what you constantly repeat. If you say, I'm fed up, everything goes wrong, I'm unlucky every day, your brain accepts it as truth and reinforces that way of seeing the world. But if you change your rhetoric and start saying, I'll find a way, I learn from every situation, today is a good day, you'll gradually reprogram your mind to focus on the positive. Phrases that weaken versus phrases that strengthen. Here are some examples of how to change your language to train your mind toward optimism. I can't do this anymore. I can do this one step at a time. I'm a mess. I'm in the process of improving. Nothing goes right for me. I learn from every experience. I'm unlucky. I create my own opportunities. It's always the same. Every day is a new opportunity. It's not about denying reality or deceiving ourselves with empty phrases. It's about choosing words that lift us up instead of dragging us down. The words and water experiment. Look, there's a very famous experiment by Dr. Masaru Emoto, a Japanese scientist who demonstrated how words affect the structure of water. He exposed water samples to positive words like love, happiness, thank you, and negative words like hate, fear, and illness. He then froze them and analyzed the crystals that formed. The result? The positive words generated beautiful and harmonious crystals, while the negative words created deformed and chaotic structures. Now, think about this. Our bodies are 70% water. If words can influence water, what do you think they do to us? Practical exercise. Speak with positive intention. Listen to how you speak. For one day, pay attention to the words you use. Do you complain a lot? Do you say negative things to yourself? How do you talk about yourself? Reframe the negative. Every time you say something negative, find a way to express it in a more constructive way. For example, instead of saying I have a problem, say I have a challenge I can overcome. Use daily affirmations. Start your day with phrases that reinforce optimism, such as today I choose to see the good, I have the ability to learn and grow, opportunities are there for me.